This podcast is sponsored by Active Skin Repair, a skin health company helping people heal with natural, non toxic, medical grade ingredients. Okay, guys, I am probably one of the most accident prone people on the planet. You can blame it on many things: bad luck, poor spatial perception, but it all results in the same thing. Bree can injure herself literally anywhere, anytime. Take, for instance, last week, I was plucking my eyebrows, people, and I stabbed myself in the hand. Next thing I know, I am bleeding everywhere, going, what the heck just happened? But luckily for me, I had some active skin repair on hand, just one spray, and it felt so much better. By the next day, it was not red, not sore. It was fantastic. I love this stuff. Active skin repair can be used to treat a wide range of skin issues. And since it's all natural and non toxic, it's perfect for people like me with sensitive skin. It works by utilizing hydrochloric acid, which mimics a natural immune response to cleanse, soothe irritation, reduce inflammation, and support the healing. With over 500,000 happy customers, thousands of 5-star reviews, and ingredients that are so safe and clean that it can be used from the youngest member of your family all the way up to the oldest, most accident prone like me, you can have one simple solution for your family's skin health needs. So visit www.activeskincarerepair.com to learn more about active skin repair and get 20% off your order by using the code NOGUILT. That's www.activeskinrepair.com. Use the code NOGUILT to get 20% off your order. They learn by what we're letting them in on. And those inner dialogues that we have, those things that we do without even thinking, they don't learn them unless they see us doing it. So our kids, especially the little ones, they tend to think we have got all of our shiznit figured out all the time and that we never get upset, we never get worked up because they don't see it. Getting in the habit when they're really little of talking through these things is huge.
Welcome to the No Guilt Mom podcast. I am your host, Joanne Crone, here with the lovely Bree Tucker.
Why, hello, everybody. How are you all doing? got a little twang there. I don't know where that
A
came
little
from today.
twang. Yeah. Well, we were talking about country line dancing right before we started this. So that could
True.
be where the twang is coming from.
Well, we were
I
also
was
talking about small towns too, in the
true.
book you're reading, in the small town
True.
aspect
The
of it.
book I'm reading is called Listen for the Lie, and it is about a small town murder that happened, and the main character goes back to her small town, and they all think she did it. And so, like, you have that tension, but also this true crime podcasters come to town and doing like a whole podcast about the murder. But he's very handsome, and he's the same age as our heroine. There's going to be something that goes on right
Yeah,
there.
of
It's a
course.
good one. It's a good one. But how people in small towns know everything that's going on about everybody else, something I've never experienced, and you say it's horrible.
I was just going to say that was my experience. So for like people, I talked before, like I actually, when I was really little, I lived outside of DC, but on a farm, like in a very small town, like that is pretty far from DC, but my dad commuted there. And then we moved to Missouri. And then when I lived in Missouri, I was in Kansas City. That's a pretty big city. That's right. Go Chiefs. Go Chiefs. All for Travis and Taylor, man, make this happen. And then I went to college in a small town called Warrensburg. So if anybody's, you know what, leave us a review. I want a shout out from anyone that is listening that knows Warrensburg.
Yeah.
And I am convinced that in Modern Family, Camden, at the end of it, he got his coaching job at University of Central Missouri. Again, go
Oh,
fighting
really?
mules. Go fighting mules.
That's fun. We went from talking about small town to talking about mules. That
In
was a
Modern
real big
Family.
progression right there. And Modern
It was.
Family.
It was. But again, so that was a small town. It's a very small town. And I just feel like everybody knew everybody's business. It just like you
Mhm.
couldn't do anything without everybody knowing what was going on. So
That would
yeah.
be very difficult, very
Yeah.
difficult. So, if you're in a
Kind of
small
like,
town, we're here for you. We're here for
yeah.
you.
And that kind of leads us into talking about like our family, like in your household, in your family. It's hard not to know everybody's biz. Or when somebody has something happening, it affects everybody.
Yeah, and it's hard also to get your kids to open up when everybody else knows everybody else's business. Very, very difficult. There are so many secrets I feel like I keep in my house from both of my kids like, not my own secrets. I am not that interesting, and I'm actually an open book. I, like, share everything about myself, maybe a little bit too much. It's actually a characteristic of ADHD. You're just an oversharer, and you don't know what's appropriate in every situation. But, yeah, I keep, like, my kids' secrets from each other. I keep, like, how they're feeling, and then I'm the kind of mediator between it all, and I bet a lot of moms probably feel that way. Like, I thrive on information. I am an information collector. That is my strength. Like, I took a strength assessment actually, and this was what my top result was. I'm an input. It's what it's called. And
Okay.
so I like to gather things. And I think that through this strength, I have learned different strategies for gathering information. And so in this podcast episode, we are going to talk about this easy habit to get your kids to open up more. And it's actually a great habit to use everywhere in your life to get anyone to open up more and to be that information gatherer, which is really a powerful thing. Like you see my eyes go wide. It's power. It's like power. So we're going to get into that today and let's get on with the show.
You want mom life to be easier. That's our goal too. Our mission is to raise more self sufficient and independent kids, and we're going to have fun doing it. We're going to help you delegate and step back. Each episode will tackle strategies for positive discipline, making our kids more responsible and making our lives better in the process. Welcome to the No Guilt Mom Podcast.
We did an episode maybe a year ago now, Brie, right? Like the
Yeah.
3 ways to handle when your kids are having trouble and pain. And those 3 ways were to listen and vent, ask if they need a distraction, or ask if they want to chill out and talk about it later. And that is a great strategy. But the one that both of us find the hardest to do is that first one, just to listen while they vent.
Because it requires like okay, so, like, you did a reel on this on Instagram where, like, you made a very good visual, and we do have another podcast episode where we interviewed Vicky Hoffel, who wrote Duct Tape Parenting, because it is so hard. I am, like, literally sitting on my hands, biting my tongue, trying not to say a word because they just need yeah.
They just need to be listened to. I
Yes,
mean,
yeah. We feel like we know the answer. We feel like we know what they need to do, but
yeah, and it's painful. It's really painful to listen to them vent because a lot of times when they vent, they're saying things that we don't necessarily agree with. They're
mhm.
saying things that we're like, "Oh my gosh, do not say that in public, else people will think I am the worst parent ever,"
Oh my
or
gosh,
that you are like not respectful of people. I mean, all this fear goes through your mind when you hear your kids vent and say horrible things about other people because when we were kids, that wasn't allowed to happen. If we said something bad about someone else, our parents would be like, "That's not a very nice thing to say." And then
right?
that would get immediately squashed and pushed down into our bins. I always think of the trash can when we're talking about suppressing negative emotions. Cause like I had it happen to me as a kid too. Anytime you'd say something bad, that's not a nice thing to say.
You don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. And we're not encouraging to say crappy things to people. We're not doing that.
But
I
I
mean,
think there's a way that you vent. There's a difference
yeah.
in complaining and venting versus ruminating. Where
Yes.
complaining and venting, you hear it once, it's out of your system, it's gone. Ruminating would be like you hear the same thing over and over again, and you're keeping your mind in that area for such a long time. That's
Yes.
not healthy.
Yeah.
The venting part, though, is completely healthy and it needs to come out. I think that it was summarized best by this session that we went to when we were at Mom 2.0 recently in Nashville. It was Maggie with Perspectacles talking, as she's on Instagram. And she talked about it where people don't always need a solution right away. Sometimes when they have a problem, you have to think that like they've dug this hole for themselves and they're way down deep in this hole. They don't need someone right there to pull them out immediately from the hole. What they need in that moment is somebody to come down in the hole and sit with them for just a bit. Sit with them so they aren't so alone down there, so their feelings are acknowledged down there. And then when you sit with them, they might be ready to come out of their hole. And I was thinking about that a lot this past month when my kids would come to me with issues. And also thinking about it when I think about members in our balance community, especially, or members who have attended my masterclass, not the Grumpy Mom masterclass, saying that when we talk about communication with our kids and asking them questions, a lot of kids clam up and they're like, I don't know. I don't know, and they won't share their emotions and they won't share how they're feeling about their emotions. Sometimes they could just be experiencing really big emotions and they really don't know. But
Yeah.
other times it could be a lot more complicated where they just don't feel safe sharing their emotions.
And I think right there, that is a huge factor that applies for a big chunk of our kids. Like,
Yeah.
I do think, like, no matter what age you are, sometimes you just don't know how you're feeling, and
Mhm.
that's true. But I do think that not feeling safe is definitely something that you see that pops up, especially once you start to hit those lovely tween years, which, in
Yes.
case the memo didn't go out to you, those years start as early as, like, 9. Like, 8,
Mhm.
9, like, I started seeing some of the tween stuff, and I'm like, "Are you freaking kidding me?" I thought I had till at least it was a double digit, but you don't. But yeah, like it and it's not always something you did. It's not I'm like,
No.
because I feel like, again, like, we've talked a lot about stuff lately and the whole if something goes wrong with my kids, I'm like, "Oh, there you go, I screwed it up." And that's that lovely Bob voice saying that to me. But realizing that sometimes it's not about you, it's about the fact that they're just feeling very I don't wanna say put upon, investigated, they feeling like they're being put under a microscope
On
sometimes.
the spot.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah.
when we say safe, it doesn't mean like they feel unsafe because they feel like they'll be physically harmed or that you'll
Yeah,
lash
not
out
that at
against
all.
them. Like,
Safe is a big
that's not
term.
what safe means. Yeah, it's a big term. It could be like, for instance, we were talking a lot about our childhoods. And I talk with this about my husband too. We were just having this conversation when we went out to lunch with some people this past weekend, where when you were a kid, you didn't share things with your parents because you wanted to protect them. You saw that they got really
Uncomfortable.
emotional, uncomfortable
Yeah.
when you shared these things with them, and so you didn't want them to feel that way, so you would protect them and not share things. And I could say I definitely did that as a child. I wanted to protect my parents. I didn't want them to have this big reaction. I wanted to protect them. Even as like a
Yeah.
kid, you realize you're doing this. And so that could be one of the reasons that kids are clamming up and not sharing and not talking about it.
I think that's a really good example and to build upon that. So not only is it that you wanna protect them, but there's also that piece of you we talk about this a lot too in Balance, about the stories we tell ourselves. And at that age, I don't know, just in general, even as an adult, I think that we tell ourselves a story of how people perceive us, and
Mm.
then we don't wanna ruin that perception. Like,
Okay.
for instance, like, growing up, I felt like my role in my family was the one that made everybody happy. It
Mm.
was my role peacemaker, that's what I would call myself. Somebody's sad, I cheered them up. Somebody was mad, I "Oh, look over here, pay attention to this." I
Mhm.
did whatever I could to make sure that everybody was in a good spot emotionally, and because of that, when I was struggling, I didn't want anybody to know because I felt like they looked to me. Isn't that ridiculous?
No, I can
Like,
identify with that.
I mean,
Yeah.
hearing it now that an 8-year-old felt like it was their job to keep everybody emotionally in check in the family,
Mhm.
and so if they were having a bad day, they had to keep it quiet and in a corner and, like, not say anything to anybody because the whole family was depending on them, and I got news
Oh,
for you.
no. I felt like that too. I felt
Yeah.
like that because my sister was a handful. She was a handful, my parents had no idea how
Yep.
to handle her. She would have very explosive moments. She would burst out in, like, rage and, like, just be very, very hard to handle. And she's a wonderful person now, and it was all due to ADHD, honestly. That could really wreak havoc. But because of that, I was the good child.
Yep.
I was the one who followed all the rules. I was the one who didn't get in trouble. And if I did step out of line, I would be the huge disappointment. Oh, you've disappointed us so much, Joanne. And that's what you internalize unless you have these frank discussions with your kids about emotions regularly, and they feel okay bringing these things up. And
Yep.
we're going to tell you the one simple habit that you need to start right after this break. You have probably heard me talk about my dog, Addie, before. And when we first got her, we didn't know that she was a counter surfer. Now, counter surfing animals are the ones who jump on counters, especially kitchen counters, when you're not looking and take stuff off of them. Well, in this instance, Addie had jumped onto the kitchen counter and eaten an entire bottle of my other dog's pain medication. You can imagine the freak out that ensued from me. So imagine this: you're at the vet's office again, knowing that vet care costs continue to rise. You're anxiously waiting to hear how expensive the bill will be. But if you had pet insurance, your pet could be covered for accidents or illnesses. That's why you should check out ASPCA Pet Health Insurance.
The ASPCA Pet Health Insurance Program offers customizable accident and illness plans, making it easier for pet parents like you to help your pet get the care that they may need. They allow you to customize the plan, helping ensure that your pet's plan is as unique as they are.
The ASPCA Pet Health Insurance Program has been around for over 18 years, and they've helped more than 600,000 pets during that time, because vet bills can really add up, especially when you're least expecting it. It's simple. Use their app to submit a claim, and you'll receive reimbursement for eligible vet bills directly into your bank account.
To explore coverage, visit aspcapetinsurance.com/no guilt. That's aspcapetinsurance.com/no guilt. Again, that's aspcapetinsurance.com/no guilt.
This is a paid advertisement. Insurance is underwritten by either Independence American Insurance Company or United States Fire Insurance Company and produced by PTZ Insurance Agency Limited. The ASPCA is not an insurer and is not engaged in the business of insurance. Hey, all, it is Joanne.
And Bree here.
And we want to tell you about a podcast that you should check out. It's called Understood Explains. This season of the show is hosted by teacher and special education expert Juliana Urturbe, and it's all about how to navigate individual education plans, also known as IEPs.
And in this latest season of Understood Explains, it covers topics like how to tell if your child needs an IEP, and it busts common myths about special education. We actually just listened to the episode IEPs. Does my child need an IEP? And here is what we loved about it.
I loved that it was so digestible. Like, it was such a short episode, and all of the topics, which could be really confusing to parents, were easily explained.
And I loved how they gave great concrete examples because you know how much I love me a good example. They explained what kind of services and supports you could actually see on a child's IEP or individual education plan. And they explained those acronyms. That nothing drives me more crazy than when there's acronyms and I don't get it. I don't know what it stands for. They took the time to explain everything in so much detail and to cover concerns that a lot of families have about special ed services.
To listen to Understood Explains, search for Understood Explains in your podcast app. That's Understood Explains, or just click on the link in our show notes. So, the cool thing about delving into all of these strategies about parenting and about self growth is that you see your relationships with other people change, especially your relationships with your kids. Like,
Yep.
my kids tell me stuff like I never would even dream of telling my parents about.
Oh
Like, I
my
could not
God,
even
yes.
picture it. Like, I'm like, do I need to know this? I don't know
Uh-huh.
if I
Yeah,
do.
yeah, there's a big part of me that gets super squeamish, and I'm like, "Hey, doing?" I think the best way I can give this to everybody was driving the car with actually, no, I was in the passenger seat. One of my kids was learning to drive, and they were driving the car in a parking lot. It was no big deal. It seemed like we'll call it a random Tuesday because it seems like
Mhm.
that's the most boring of days. That's the most vanilla of days. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and my kid said to me, "Mom, do we have that kind of relationship where we share secrets?" And I was like, immediately my head starts to explode. 'Cause I'm like, I had all the feelings, right? Part of my head, I imagine like it zooms in and it's like one of those scenes from Inside Out There was the one part of my emotion that's like, "Oh my god, it's happening. It's happening. We're connecting with our teen. Everybody be ready. Don't screw it up. We're
Yeah.
connecting." And then there's this other part that's like, "Oh geez, I know whatever they're gonna say next. I don't wanna hear. I don't wanna know, like, plausible deniability."
Yeah.
And then the
Yeah.
other part of me that's like, "Just shut up and listen."
Just shut up
And
and
it was
listen.
and I so then my zoom right back out, it was like, I feel like we have the kind of relationship where you can tell me whatever you need to tell me,
Mhm.
and I'll always be here to support you.
Yeah.
And then thus came the mother load of information.
The mother, yeah. Yeah, and this mother load of information is not comfortable in the moment, and I think that's
No,
really what we struggle with, and the one simple habit that we want you to try out is just keep your mouth shut. It is the hardest damn thing to do. It is
it's so
really, really
hard.
hard, really hard. I mean, I get into it too, like, when my kids are venting to me about problems at school, and like the my trigger is when you call people names. When you're like, "This person," especially when they talk about teachers. This is where I really get into
Oh,
it.
well,
"Oh my
because
gosh."
yeah.
Because I was a teacher. I was a public school teacher. I know how hard it is. I wanna really rush in and defend all the teachers in the world. And
Yeah.
so when they come in and they're like, "Oh my gosh, this teacher was so stupid." They're, like, mean and they're cruel, and, like, automatically my brain is like, "But they have such a hard job, and it's such a hard day, and I'm sure they didn't mean to do that." I have to keep my mouth shut because
Yep.
it is not about the teacher in that moment. It
Yep.
is not about me in that moment. It is
Yep.
about my child in that moment. And that is so hard. Usually, what I end up doing is I'm just using the headline method that Dr. Lisa Damore talks about in her book, The Emotional Lives of Teenagers, where you're looking at what they're saying and you're trying to summarize it. So, if one of my kids comes and they're like, "Yeah, this teacher sucks and they did this and this and this," what I say is, I'm like, "Wow, that sounds like that's really tough and frustrating to deal with. If I had to deal with that, I would be really, like, mad as well." And so
Yep.
I'm trying to empathize with them and doing the headline method with them without defending the teacher, and that's really hard.
Right? Because there's that part of us that's because I can hear the "yeah, but" right now. Okay, so the "yeah, but" coming in is, "Well, yeah, but it's my job to teach my child, like, how to be polite and thoughtful of other people." Yes, there is a time and a place. This, though, is not that time or place.
No, but I also have to give this little caveat where, yes, they do have to be thoughtful of other people, but are you showing the same thoughtfulness to them in this situation by completely dismissing their emotions in the moment?
Exactly, and that's why it is so important to try to do this, to have this moment where whatever it is, bite your tongue, bite your cheek, grab some duct tape and stick it over your mouth, whatever it takes.
It's so hard. And we weren't able to talk this way with our parents. And I hear now all of those things that we were talking about in the first part of this podcast episode, where you felt like you needed to make everybody happy and that was your role. I felt like I needed to be the good child and
Mhm.
never step out of place or never try anything or never take any risks. I mean, that's how I interpret it as. I am hearing that from my kids all the time now because there is one phrase that I use with them. Anytime, like my son will bring this up, he'll be like, "Hey, I feel like I'm making you angry. Like, I see that you're angry." And I'm like, "Dude, it is not you. Like, you are not making me angry." And I say, "I am in control of my own emotions. You are not causing my emotions. It is how I am choosing to deal with my emotions and go through with it. You cannot cause another person's emotions." And I repeat that for them over and over again, knowing that me as the adult, I am in charge of my own emotions. You do not need to protect me. I am good here. This is the best thing I can do for you is to make sure that I am good and you don't have to take care of me in the emotional department. Because I feel like that's something like I did with my parents all the time. I felt like I needed to take care of them in that emotional department.
I think that is a big, big thing there. So let's unpack that for a split second because I think that's where we know our stories ended up. It started with whatever it started with. And both of us, there was a bit of chaos going on in our house. And we saw that it was helpful to our family if we acted a certain way. And so our story was that it was our job to take care of our parents or other people. Like, either way, it was our job to take care of those other people and that we needed to do this to manage their emotions. Had someone said to us years ago, no, it's not your job to manage our emotions. We're 100% aware of our emotions. I don't even know where I'm trying to go with this necessarily, other than I think that it would have been really helpful because I don't think our families even knew
They
that we were
didn't.
telling ourselves that story, right?
No, they had
Like,
no idea.
if they're listening
Yeah.
to the podcast episode today, we love you. We love you
Yes.
all endlessly.
No, they had no
And
idea, and I don't blame them at all. Blame them
yeah,
at
and
all
it
for it.
took a lot of time for us to figure that out, but imagine the gift if somebody had said to us when we were younger, "You can be happy, you can be fun, you can make people laugh, you can make whatever you wanna do, but it's not your job to take care of them." That would have
Mhm.
taken so much stress off our shoulders.
Yeah, and so much more freedom to share how we actually feel about things.
And that's kind of also how you can get into not great relationships going forward because you feel like it's your job to fix these red flags you see. And it can
Exactly.
get you in dangerous positions. And that could be like at work, like so many different ways. It doesn't have to be like romantic relationships because I feel like a lot of people go there. But like you can
Yeah,
get in toxic relationships at work.
anywhere. My daughter was actually really quick to point out something that I've been doing in the house. My son has always been very high energy, high emotional energy. I mean, I've talked about him as a baby before. It's been this way since he was born.
Uh-huh.
And she pointed out, I feel like I am being ignored sometimes, especially she talked about one instance at dinner where she was telling a story and then my son said something. And we all, like me and my husband, just kind of looked at my son and tried to engage him because we're so used to trying to prevent emotional meltdowns with him. And she
Mm-hmm.
called me on it. She's like, "I feel like you are always trying to manage his emotions and then I get ignored." And
Yep.
hearing that, I was like, "Oh, crap." Like, and I at first I felt really bad and I wanted to defend myself, and I stopped myself in those moments anytime I want to defend myself, and I'm like, "Okay, is there truth here? Is there?" And I acknowledged, I'm like, you know what? You're absolutely right. I do that. I totally do that. And I'm going to work on that. Did I feel like I was about to cry in that moment? Uh-huh. Yeah, I felt
Aw.
really shameful and bad, but I also knew that it was an emotion that I was going to go through and get through pretty easily. And I'm like, thank you for telling me that. And then I left and I had my emotional moment on my own.
But like you also realize that happens in so many families.
Yeah,
Like,
it
so
does.
many like,
Yes.
that's what happened in your family growing
Mhm.
up. And imagine how different it would have been had you been able to articulate that, had you felt that you could safely say that without that person coming back at you and saying, "How dare you say that? That's not true. You're completely false in your feelings." And
Or I'm doing the best I can. How dare you criticize me? That kind
right,
of things, you know?
right.
Because I feel like kids get that as well. I hear stories of kids getting that. My daughter tells me stories of friends, and my son tells me stories of teachers who do that. And so kids are
Aw.
getting this from all directions. So it's a hard
Yeah.
thing. It's a
Yeah.
hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to keep in mind. It's a hard thing to keep your mouth shut. So we've told you already one of those things like you just have to try to keep your mouth shut. If they need a response, you're using that summarizing technique. You're using that acknowledging. You're taking a beat for information. And we're going to give you a few more tips to help in getting all that information out of your kids right after this break.
Shout out to Clarendon for supporting this episode and providing us with samples. Hey guys, Bree here. And let me tell you, April is a killer time of the year for me because it is crazy allergy season. I swear, everything that is in bloom looks fantastic and beautiful, but it makes it so I can't breathe. I am literally coughing, sneezing, rubbing my nose. I look like Rudolph half of the spring. It's terrible. But luckily for those of us who live with symptoms of allergies like I do, we live Claritin Clear with Claritin D. Designed for serious allergy sufferers, Claritin D has two powerful ingredients in just one pill that relieve your allergy symptoms and decongest your nose so you can finally breathe better. This double action combination of prescription strength allergy medicine is the best decongestant available. It relieves sneezing, a runny nose, itchy, watery eyes, itchy nose and throat, and sinus congestion and pressure with ease. I absolutely love it. It is the only allergy medicine that works for me. So if you're ready to live life as if you don't have allergies, it's time to live Claritin Clear. Fast and powerful relief is just one quick trip away. Find Claritin D at the pharmacy counter. Ask for Claritin D at your local pharmacy counter. You don't even need a prescription. Go to Claritin.com right now for a discount so you can live Claritin Clear.
I'm Margaret.
And I'm Amy.
And together we host the podcast, What Fresh Hell? Laughing in the Face of Motherhood.
Margaret, I would say you're sort of a where are my keys kind of mom.
Correct. Sometimes a where are my kids kind of mom. While you're, Amy, more of a we were supposed to leave 35 seconds ago mom.
I mean, touche. In each episode of What Fresh Hell, we come at a topic from our usually completely opposite perspectives. I bring the research.
And I bring kind of the gimlet eye. Like, is that research really going to work, people?
And almost 10 million downloads later, we're still laughing.
We also talk to experts in the parenting field, plus parents with stories we can all learn from.
We make each other laugh, we challenge each other's assumptions, and we have what we think is the best parenting community on the internet.
Check out What Fresh Hell? Laughing in the Face of Motherhood wherever you listen to podcasts.
So we've already acknowledged keeping your mouth shut, this easy habit. Maybe it's simple, but maybe it's not so easy. Maybe we get that. But the things that you learn from kids and the things that you learn from people are going to be so eye-opening, because once you start thinking this way, you will start to notice if you have had the habit of offering advice way too quickly in the past. When I started doing this, I noticed my first inclination was to be like, "Oh, have you tried this?" Like
Right.
the first thing out of my mouth.
Well,
That was
because
what I
we
wanna
want
do.
to fix, right? Because we want to
Mhm.
fix things. We want to fix things. And plus, we have the joy. We are here to tell you that, yes, you have a life of experience and you probably do have top notch, grade A ideas on strategies to do. But in that moment, they're not going to be heard,
They're
no
not.
matter how amazing they are.
They're not.
They're
And
not.
there's actually ways that you can teach those ideas that are outside of the moment. Right now, going into this weekend, we have our huge No Guilt Mom retreat coming up. And I have to say, Bree, I think I'm speaking for both of us, where it's a little nerve-wracking because it's
Oh,
a
yeah.
huge event. It has a lot of moving pieces, and it's a little nerve-wracking coming up. We're a little nervous about it. And I know that this is something that happens with my son. And so I pulled this out this morning because my son gets nervous about big things going on, or like big projects coming up that he doesn't feel like he knows exactly what's going to happen, like first, second, and third, which I
Yeah.
feel like this retreat coming up is. So since he was in a good emotional space and I was trying to talk myself down, I was telling him in the car, I'm like, okay, I'm really nervous about this. I'm really nervous about my sister, like having her baby right in the middle of this. And I'm just trying to tell myself to enjoy the moment because there's such great things happening. And I have this choice whether I want to concentrate on the worry or if I want to concentrate on the good stuff about it and the hope.
Yeah.
And so I'm really trying to work on concentrating on the hope. And I just told him this. I'm just modeling. This is modeling in action. It's talking through your thoughts without any teaching.
Yes. Okay. I cannot express how helpful that is. And again, like if you're listening to this episode and you're like, all right, yeah, but my kid is like 2, that doesn't really come up. No, wait, it does. Let me
Mm.
pause you there for a moment because they learn by what we're letting them in on. And those inner dialogues that we have, those things that we do without even thinking, they don't learn them unless they see us doing it. So our kids, especially the little ones, they tend to think we have got all of our shiznit figured out all the time and that we never get upset, we never get worked up because they don't see it. Getting in the habit when they're really little of talking through these things is huge because you know what else it does? Like when they get older and they turn into these self-aware teens that think that the whole world is focusing on them 24/7, they realize that, oh, a lot of people have anxiety. Oh, a lot of people are worried
Mhm.
about that stuff. It's not just me. I'm not crazy because of it.
Yeah, that goes exactly to what my goals for doing this is. Like,
Yeah.
I am very open with my kids about, like, entrepreneurship in particular, about the stresses it has with it. And it's like maybe sometimes I concentrate a little bit too much on the stress because my daughter's like, "I never wanna be an entrepreneur, mom. It sounds way too stressful." And I don't concentrate enough on the freedom and the absolute joy of doing
You
what you wanna do is.
Well, I would say in that case, it's because she's lived it. She's always seen you having that, and they don't
Mhm.
realize what you don't realize. Wait, what's that song from the '80s? You don't realize what you got until it's gone. I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, it's really bad. It's a Harry Beyond song. But
I would
anyway,
help
yeah.
you, I just don't know what song you're talking
I
about.
know, because I am butchering it at this moment. So yeah, yeah. You don't know
No,
what you
I
got till it's gone. Anyway, go
it's
on.
funny because 'cause I'm like, "Do you know most parents wouldn't be able to stop what they're
Uh-huh.
doing 30 minutes before you need to pick them up? Do you
Yeah.
know this?"
Yeah. Yeah. Do you know that
Did
getting a car ride instead of riding a bus is actually a perk?
Yeah. Did you know this?
Did
No.
you know that when you're having a stomachache and you can stay home just because 'cause I'm already here is completely it's a new thing.
Exactly. Modeling that stress
Mhm.
because I think growing up, we had this perception that if you were doing things right in your life, everything would be easy. Did you ever have that? You thought something must be wrong if things are hard.
Okay, so I'm smiling huge on this because I was at my daughter had a doctor appointment yesterday for just, like, for a checkup, and that's exactly what the doctor brought up. The doctor was
Oh,
like, "Listen, I know you've got struggles going on right now, but I want you to know that I never wish struggle on anybody." She was like, "And people with these lives, and they have a nice car, they have a nice job, they have a big house, everybody seems happy." "But I can tell you that it's the struggles that make you who you are
mhm.
and that build you up." And she's, "So while you're dealing with some struggles right now, I just want you to remember that life is supposed to be hard. It's not supposed to
Yeah.
be like beat you down hard, but it is supposed to have those hard parts."
You have the you stress, the EU stress, the good stress, the stress that propels you forward. And sometimes it's the stress that's not so good for you, and that's the thing to monitor. But
Yeah.
something like I've realized that I thrive on a challenge. And usually when I get to the place that I want to get to, it's like, next goalpost, please. And that's where my mind goes naturally. And I've tried to tell myself that this is like the challenge. The challenge is what I love. I don't
Mhm.
love the destination so much. It's like the Miley Cyrus song. Have you heard the song, The Climb?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that. It's not the highest mountain peak, it's the climb that is really
Yeah.
exciting, and that's where you connect with people. That's where you get your best stories from. That's where you really, like, change as a person. So, all of those things are great to share, and they're great to get out of kids as well, and they're good to have them vent because a lot of times, like, all people need is for someone to go and sit in the hole with them.
Yeah.
So, when your kids come to you next time and they're complaining, go down and sit in the hole just for a little bit. And then if they keep complaining, then's the time to try to get them out of the hole once they've gotten everything back. I usually know it's time to start pulling them out when they start circling back on things they've already complained about. And I'm like,
Oh,
it's time.
that's a good
Let's get up. Yeah.
that's a good thing because I think that's like as someone who's very black and white and I like my rules and procedures,
Mhm.
not knowing how long to be vested in something. That's a really good point. Like when they keep coming back to the same thing, they're starting to go down. I would say starting to go even deeper down the hole into the rabbit hole underneath.
And you could get stuck in that mindset, and I think that's where a lot of people get afraid that their kids will get stuck if they allow any complaining whatsoever, and it doesn't have to be that way. One thing that I know in the positive parenting circles, if kids ask a question more than once, they're like, "Asked and answered." Well, I think that's a little cruel, honestly, without the emotions, but with the emotions attached to it, because obviously they're in this place, but making them aware of it. My daughter will come to me with the same problem she talked to me like 2 days ago, and I'm like, "Didn't we go through this decision already? Didn't we, like, talk about this issue?" And she's like, "Yeah, I just wanna bring it up again and again and again." And she'll stop then because she realizes that, yes, she has already gone through this. She has already made a decision on how to move forward. She is just experiencing some doubt that she wants to go through it again. But it's a great thing to notice in yourself too. I mean, how many times do you feel like you just are stay down in the hole and like you need to take some action to bring yourself up out of the hole? Like I've been there many
Oh,
times.
yeah. Yeah, like, I was just thinking, like, my go-to vent people, like, I was wondering I call, one of my sisters a lot because we both, like, worked in the same field, so we know a lot of the same people, so sometimes it's fun just to be able to vent to somebody else that gets it. They're like, "Oh, yeah, 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 Sharon,
Mhm.
man, yeah, she's tough."
Sure.
And then, of course, you, and I have Miguel, and I have my safe people that I know I can call and just be like, "I just need to get this out so that I can
Mhm.
start, yeah, moving forward," because I would say it's weighing me down. I feel like I'm
Yeah.
drowning. I just need to be able to get it all out so that I can now take a breath and move forward.
You just have someone to acknowledge that, hey, that really sucks.
Yeah,
That sucks a lot. And then
yeah,
sometimes that's all you need. And that's
yeah.
all your kids need too.
Uh-huh.
Just sit down in the hole with them and try to keep your mouth shut. And that is the easy habit to start today. So we hope that you've gotten a lot out of this episode. Let us know, please, on Apple reviews. We would love to hear you there. Come DM me on Instagram. And if you're not getting the No Guilt Mom Weekly in your inbox, we have a link for you right down there. So go sign up for that. And until next time, remember, the best mom's a happy mom. Take care of you, and we'll talk to you later.
Thanks for stopping by.
Oh, hey, everybody. It's us, Blair and Molly, your old pals from Toddler Purgatory. Two moms who are also actors, who are also creative beings, who sometimes feel stuck.
And this is our new podcast, Unsticking It with Blair and Molly. What happens when your creative spark just seems to disappear? Gone.
Poof. Bye.
See ya. What happens when life gets in the way of your creativity instead of nourishing it? That's what happened to Molly and me. We felt like the thing that drove us creatively stopped working and impending doom had in fact impended.
Totally. So we decided to do something about it. And that was steal ideas about getting unstuck from the most creative people we can find. We talk to guests about how to break through the mucky, gluey, sticky wall that can get between you and your creativity. We hear about their journeys, their successes, their challenges, and even their bougie coffee shop orders.
And we're not just talking Bob Ross type paint on paper artists here, though we talk to them too. We're talking to actors, creative directors, dancers, and people who are working hard to be their best creative selves in a world that can sometimes feel real uncreative.
We all have something to teach each other, so let's steal their ideas together.
Join us, won't you, as we deep dive into how to unstick ourselves from the life gunk that can get in the way of our creative freedom. Pandemics, school calendars,
World events, lack of sleep. Oh, get out of their life gunk.
and let's get back to your best creative self. Subscribe to Unsticking It with Blair and Molly.
You're not going to want to miss an episode.
Unsticking It with Blair and Molly, because sometimes life sucks.
Unsticking